Sign this paper or you are out of the family." My father pushed the contract toward me without even blinking once. "Victoria needs the rights to that legacy software to close the acquisition. Stop acting childish and be useful for once. You are just freelancing, Lauren. You don't grasp serious business realities." I studied the pen resting in his palm. Then I lifted my eyes to his face. He believed he had me trapped at last. He never suspected I was preparing to ruin everything he built carefully. I wrapped my fingers around the pen slowly and offered him warmth. I did not shout. I did not overturn the heavy oak table. I only kept smiling because he misunderstood Entitlement truly occupied the chair across from him. Before I explain what unfolded when the buyer stepped through those doors, drop a comment and tell me where you are listening right now. I want to measure how far this travels. It's 3 hours before my father attempted destroying everything. I stepped into the marble lobby inside Silver Creek Golf Resort. It was the type of venue charging $12 for bottled water and reeking of inherited wealth and quiet panic. My mother, Sandra, offered no embrace upon arrival. She never asked about the long highway drive. Instead, she shoved a bulky black camera case hard against my sternum, forcing me back one unsteady step. "You are late," she whispered hurriedly, scanning the room to ensure her affluent circle didn't witness acknowledgement. Victoria already started her celebratory speech. "Go inside and make yourself marginally helpful. And Lauren, restrain yourself from sampling the appetizers. We are billed per guest, and you work tonight, not socialize here. My name is Lauren. I'm 28 years old, publicly to the financial sector. I am the architect of a logistics empire moving cargo across 3 continents, legally to the IRS. I am categorized as high net worth, upper bracket. Yet inside this ballroom, to those sharing blood, I remain the disappointment, the contractor, the spare components saved for photography." I accepted the equipment without resistance. I didn't mention my consulting fee exceeded this venue's entire rental cost. I simply entered quietly and lifted the camera. There stood Victoria, my elder sister, elevated above. She radiated not affection but calculated ambition tonight. A champagne flute rested within one manicured hand, while an oversized diamond ring glittered brightly. She narrated the acquisition to anyone leaning closer. "Titan Ventures," she announced, voice drifting beyond violins. "They are purchasing everything for $18,500,000 cash. The agreement finalized. He merely awaits signatures." She appeared luminous, victorious, bathed in imagined success. She failed realizing Titan Ventures belonged entirely to paperwork I filed in Delaware months earlier. She never guessed she was boasting proudly about transferring ownership directly to the sister dispatched for drink refills tonight. I pressed the shutter. Flash, Victoria smiling broadly. Flash, Michael, my father, clasping investors' eager hands, like a triumphant patriarch of an enterprise. "He quietly bankrupted years ago." Flash. Sandra reprimanding staff for refilling too slowly. "They assume invisibility equals weakness or quiet humiliation. Yes, sometimes it bruises. Standing ignored by your own mother wounds deeply, in ways never fully hardening into indifference. But they overlook something critical about being unseen. When you register as irrelevant, people overshare freely. They never soften voices before hired photographers. They conceal nothing important from presumed hired help, through glass and focus. I captured more than posed expressions tonight. I archived evidence meticulously, each rare vintage opened. Every couture gown displayed, every reckless brag concerning imaginary liquidity. I compared their indulgence against financial statements already downloaded and reviewed privately. They assumed I lingered in shadows from shame. They never understood that asterisk. It is a camouflage for predators. And I was stalking. The celebration swelled louder as champagne kept pouring. The string quartet shifted into something far livelier, yet unease hung heavier than coastal summer humidity. I was topping off the ice bucket nearby when Victoria drifted over. She offered. No gratitude. She didn't hand me a single sparkling flute. She bent nearer, exhaling notes of costly perfume, and curved her lips. You look absurd wearing that tragic ensemble. She snapped the strap of my camera bag. At least you finally contribute something worthwhile. It is overdue. You began carrying responsibility here. I showed no reaction. I merely fine-tuned the focus ring slowly. Just fulfilling duties, Victoria. Congratulations regarding the acquisition. 18 million sounds remarkable. She rolled her eyes, checking discreetly behind her for influential eavesdroppers nearby. Then she edged closer, lowering volume conspiratorially. Remarkable. It is miraculous. Those fools at Titan Ventures barely reviewed metrics. My pulse thudded violently, though my expression stayed neutral. Metrics were exaggerated. She grinned, sipping casually. We purchased 50,000 automated bot profiles recently to inflate engagement statistics. Projected revenue relies upon. Contracts not finalized yet, but Titan only noticed the rising growth curve and signed without hesitation. They are purchasing emptiness, Lauren. A polished, decorative shell with nothing inside. I adopted meek posture, reaching for a napkin to polish an imaginary spill on cool marble. While leaning downward, I slipped my phone onto the stone surface. Face down, microphone open. The recording app already captured every careless syllable. I wasn't passively hearing. I ensured crisp audio of each arrogant confession. Is that truly secure? I asked, feigning ignorance. Michael appeared beside us, slapping Victoria's shoulder proudly. His cheeks were flushed, his tie hanging loose. Secure. It is genius. We collect the payment, clear personal liabilities swiftly, and board a flight to the Cayman Islands before suspicion ever surfaces. Let Titan manage collapse. Phoebo retire comfortably. They shared a vicious laugh, thick with superiority. They believed themselves cleverest in the entire ballroom. We're admitting federal wire fraud, securities violations, and criminal conspiracy aloud because they assumed stupidity. They believed I lacked capacity to comprehend them. I nodded compliantly, shaping a fragile, accommodating smile. Wow, you planned thoroughly. That is executive thinking, Lauren, Michael mocked harshly. You handle assistance tasks. Now photograph your mother near the ice sculpture. And avoid dropping equipment. It exceeds your vehicle's value. I observed them departing, exchanging triumphant high fives. I glanced downward quietly. The recording indicator glowed. I lifted the phone, saved the audio file, and uploaded a duplicate to encrypted cloud storage. Then I messaged Mr. Sterling immediately afterward. They confessed everything openly. Audio file incoming now. They assumed I cleaned their disasters. Discreetly. I was arranging burial. The quartet finished performing. Guests drifted toward exits, giddy from free champagne and proximity to illusionary fortune and prestige. For my family, however, the evening truly commenced. We relocated into a secluded conference suite bordering the grand ballroom. The atmosphere shifted entirely, stagnant and intensely formal. I remained near the wall, camera bag resting quietly beside my polished heels. Invisible once again. Michael loosened his collar, anticipation bright across features. Victoria refreshed lipstick carefully, using her phone reflection. They resembled predators, savoring an imminent, helpless feast. They believed victory inevitable. Then the door swung open with quiet authority. The temperature seemed suddenly 10 degrees colder instantly. Enter Arthur Sterling. I retained Sterling precisely because he weaponized statutes. He entered in charcoal tailoring cut flawlessly precise, leather briefcase aged elegantly. He offered no greeting. He skipped pleasantries entirely. claimed the table head and seated himself calmly. "Mr. Sterling," Michael declared, reaching across expansively. "A delight meeting architect behind Titan Capital Funding. Your firm chose wisely." Sterling ignored the hand. He did not acknowledge it. He unlatched his briefcase. Metal clasps snapped sharply, echoing like distant gunfire. From inside, he withdrew a substantial bound contract and pushed it forward. "Let us avoid theatrics," Sterling said evenly. "My client requires closure this evening without delay. Before signatures, formalities apply." Victoria laughed nervously. A brittle, chiming sound. Formalities. "We forwarded the presentation materials already. User growth appears exponential." Reviewed all charts, Sterling lifted his gaze. His eyes resembled flint. "I examined the charts. Charts do not interest me. Liability concerns interest me." He opened to a page marked crimson, rotating the document deliberately. "Clause 14B, he stated. "Representations and warranties section. Review the language carefully." From my shadowed corner, I recognized Clause 14B, intimately and thoroughly. "I drafted it personally. Its provision affirms," Sterling continued, tapping firmly, "that the seller guarantees all financial disclosures, metrics, and projected revenues submitted to Titan Ventures remain entirely organic and accurate. It specifies explicitly that any manipulation or fabrication constitutes material contractual breach." He allowed silence lengthen deliberately across the room. Then he leaned forward. "Furthermore, since this transaction requires interstate electronic transfer, executing this agreement knowingly while misrepresenting information qualifies as federal wire fraud under statute, which carries mandatory imprisonment upon conviction in court. They finally understood consequence. Asterisk, are we clear?" The air collapsed into silence. I noticed Michael's Adam's apple jerk as he forced down a swallow. I watched Victoria's fingers quiver, faintly reaching for her crystal water glass. Briefly. Barely noticeable. For a heartbeat, I assumed survival instinct might override ambition. I believed they could still retreat gracefully. Instead, I misjudged appetite. Or perhaps overvalued intellect. Michael erupted into laughter, a booming, hollow performance. Standard boilerplate language. "Yes, attorneys always safeguard themselves. We trust our figures, correct, Victoria?" Victoria lifted her chin. Confidence flooded back instantly. "Absolutely. Growth is aggressive. Some call it unbelievable, yet it remains authentic." Sterling studied her silently, letting discomfort stretch longer. He was offering mercy. They might as well have flashed neon warnings. "Do not proceed further." "Very well," Sterling replied, removing the pen cap. "If you are confident," he nudged the contract closer toward their reach. They failed noticing snares. They ignored iron bars descending invisibly around them. All they perceived was 18 million shimmering beyond a single reckless autograph. They craved it so desperately they ignored toxins. Victoria seized the instrument. "K, a weighty gold-plated Mont Blanc, once favored by our father theatrically. He wielded it during transactions he barely comprehended." She poised its nib above the signature line, pausing momentarily. Within that pause, I observed calculation flicker. I saw risk assessment flash behind her eyes. Sterling had plainly stated that falsifying disclosures meant federal criminal liability. A rational thinker halts. An intelligent executive requests private counsel immediately. Victoria embodied neither quality. In that instant, starvation overruled strategy entirely. Behavioral psychology identifies a bias called confirmation. It describes favoring evidence supporting prior convictions. Victoria believed herself brilliant. She believed consequences impossible. Most critically, she believed an $18 million deliverance awaited seconds ahead. When desire intensifies sufficiently, The brain erases cautionary signals and flashing alarms. She interpreted legal warnings as hurdles to clear. She perceived no snare, only a triumphant finish. I applied no coercion. I pressed no weapon. I simply constructed conditions. Her own hunger tightened the rope around her, while Victoria declared, displaying a brittle brightness, we conceal absolutely nothing. Our financials remain impeccable. The pen grated loudly against heavy parchment. Scratch, scratch, she signed. She slid the pages toward Michael immediately. He skimmed nothing whatsoever. He flourished his autograph with theatrical impatience, already savoring reclaimed wealth. Done, Michael proclaimed, snapping the folder closed. He turned toward me, eyes glittering victorious smugness. Observe, Lauren. This is authentic business execution. Calculated risks, decisive action, not hiding photographing corners. Victoria exhaled deeply, collapsing into her chair. It is completed now. Agreement finalized tonight. She faced Sterling expectantly, awaiting confirmation transfer. How soon do funds arrive in our account? We must settle vendors early tomorrow. Morning, immediate wire, correct? Michael added impatiently, glancing down at timepiece. Anticipation thickened atmosphere. They were already allocating millions inside imagination, booking international flights mentally, shopping luxury vehicles, mentally mocking naive investors privately. Sterling typed no passwords. He checked no devices, accessed no banking portal. Steady closed his laptop deliberately and quietly. The lid clicked shut like a judge's gavel. There appears confusion, Sterling stated evenly. Victoria's smile, fractured confusion. We executed paperwork. You possess agreement copies. You did sign, Sterling acknowledged calmly. However, I cannot authorize release of those funds. Why the hell not? Michael snapped, complexion reddening. You represent Titan Ventures. You negotiated this deal. I represent interests, Sterling replied, fingers interlaced. I function as proxy. I draft agreements carefully. I attend negotiations personally. I do not control capital. He eased his chair backward. Leather groaned softly beneath. I lack authority to disburse $18 million. Only the principal approves. The principal. Victoria echoed, voice pitching sharply upward. Who exactly is principal? Call him immediately now. Place him speakerphone instantly. No call necessary, Sterling answered composedly. He rose, circling deliberately around polished conference table. Then he rotated his chair toward shadowed corner. The principal stands present. Silence descended, crushingly heavy. I stepped from darkness, released my camera bag, and approached the table with the calm of someone who owned it. From my tote, I withdrew a heavy-bound dossier and dropped it hard. Forensic audit. Sterling and Reed, logistics confidential. I am. The principal, I stated evenly. Titan Ventures belongs to me entirely. I formed it quietly 6 years earlier after liquidating my first registered patent successfully. Victoria, you never transferred ownership to outsiders. You transferred it to your sister. She shook her head in disbelief. You are freelance help. You cannot access $18 million. Correct, I answered calmly. I never paid 18. I acquired your liabilities for $4 million instead. Michael shot upright. You impossible. No, listen carefully now. After 4 missed installments, your lender labeled obligations non-performing toxic assets. They packaged and auctioned them discreetly. Titan Ventures submitted sole qualifying bid. I now possess the building title documents, the production equipment, even these leather chairs. You owe no bank. Dad, you owe me instead. Color vanished. From his stunned expression, I faced Victoria slowly. And you executed a formal admission. You certified those user figures authentic. That qualifies as federal wire fraud exposure. We're family, she murmured. Family doesn't entrap relatives with criminal allegations. Sterling inclined his head. The forensic review concluded, I said firmly. The outstanding debt accelerates effective immediately. Michael lunged forward, grasping for paperwork. Victoria attempted ripping pages. I would reconsider, I advised coolly. Tampering with evidence constitutes additional felony charges. Sterling crossed toward the tall window and jerked the cord. Harsh floodlights flooded inward. The conference doors exploded wide open suddenly. FBI hands were visible. Agents surged inside rapidly. I didn't merely purchase your obligations, I informed my father. 3 months earlier, I submitted whistleblower diceless lists to both SEC and FBI. Metal cuffs clicked tightly around Victoria's wrists. This operation was coordinated, I explained quietly. When you signed that completed offense elements, Michael stared frozen. You orchestrated everything. I did not. I responded evenly. I simply illuminated truth. You elected deception willingly within darkness. Agents escorted them outward. It is finished, Sterling confirmed softly. Yes, I replied. Outside, I approached me, matte black sedan settled behind steering wheel. It observed emergency strobes reflect across the hood. Michael forfeited everything this evening because he wagered on falsehood instead of integrity. I opened my contacts. Dad, Mom, Victoria. Delete. Not rage, just necessary housekeeping. The engine hummed smoothly as I merged highway bound for the first time. I was not traveling toward validation nor fleeing rejection. I was simply heading home. Sometimes the sharpest revenge isn't shouting. It's becoming the one who signs the checks.